All right. I will call to order the February 10th, 2020 City Planning Commission meeting. My name is Sam Rockwell. I serve as the president of the Minneapolis City Planning Commission, and I am joined today by Commissioners Meyer, Sweezy, Lupke-Pierre, Schrader, Olson, and Kronzer. Our first order of business today is to approve the minutes of the January 27th, 2020 City Planning Commission meeting. Do I have a motion? Second. I have a motion and a second to accept the minutes of January 27th meeting. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. All right, our next order of business, do we have a report out? No report out from Committee of the Whole. Our next order of business is to adopt the agenda for today's meeting. I'm going to work through the agenda for those of you here in the audience. If you wish to testify on an item as I listed off, please indicate that you wish to testify. Otherwise, we will place it on consent, and there will not be any testimony on that item. So our first item number 4, is the Benedict South Middle School at 2526 27th Avenue South in Ward 2. An application for a non-conforming use expansion. Is anyone here to testify against staff recommendation on that item? Yes, we have one person. We'll put item number 4 on our discussion agenda. Item number 5 is 813 12th Avenue Southeast in Ward 3. A couple of variances and a site review there. Is anybody here to speak on item number 5? No one will place item number 5 on consent. Item number 6 is the Art and Architecture Building Development, 3326, 3338, and 3350 University Avenue Southeast. We will discuss item number 6. Let me see how many folks are here for item number 6, just so I have a sense. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Item number 7 is 3801 Hiawatha Apartments, 3801 and 3845 Hiawatha Avenue. Is anyone here to speak on the Hiawatha Apartments? One person? All right, we'll place that on our discussion. Item number 8 is the zoning code text amendment on garages. And is anybody here to speak on that item? Item number 8 will be on consent. Item number 9 are the Duffy Lofts, 500, 506, and 528 Washington Avenue North. A couple of variances and a site plan review. Is anyone here to speak on the Duffy Lofts? Seeing no one. Oh, seeing 3 people. We will place that on discussion agenda. And item number 10 is Curry Park, 404 and 420 15th Avenue South, 1417 South 5th Street in Ward 6. Vacation there. Is anybody here to speak on item number 10? So no one will place item number 10 on consent. And item number 11 is 3115 East 42nd Street in Ward 12, rezoning, variances, and site plan review. Is anyone here to speak? Several are here to speak on item number 11. We will discuss item number 11. So our agenda as amended is on consent. Items number 5, 8, and 10. And for our discussion today, items number 4, 6, 7, 9, and 11. Commissioners, could I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor say aye. Motion carries. Next, I will open the public hearing on the consent agenda. If anyone wishes to say any words on items number 5, 8, or 10. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing on the consent agenda. Commissioners, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with staff recommendations? Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Motion carries. All right, on to our discussion items. First up is item number 4, Benedict South Middle School And staff is Aaron Hanauer.
Chair and Commissioners, for Benedier South Middle School at 2526 27th Avenue South, project site is located along 27th Avenue South and near Matthews Park. The predominant properties along 27th are industrial, and then you have the residential properties just to the east. The school has been a charter school for decades at this location, and the applicant is proposing to put a existing site plan and proposed a approximately 2,400 square foot playground in front of the building along 27th Avenue South. And given that the project site doesn't have the industrial living overlay district, it's just the industrial district, it's an expansion of non-conforming use is required, given that a school is not a permitted or conditional use in the industrial district alone. Just quickly going through the findings, staff did not see a rezoning being appropriate for the site, so that is one of the findings that need to be met, and that the enlargement, expansion, relocation is compatible with the area, with the conditions of approval that staff is recommending. We're looking to improve and making sure that the kids have a safe space to get to and from school and within the area, a direct walkway from 27th Avenue to the school, improved landscaping, and also arrows to allow for parking, allow for traffic to more efficiently and safely get through the site by having arrows pointing which way vehicles be able to go from the site via the alley to the street, and making sure that there isn't conflicts with vehicles trying to go both ways at the same time. And with that, the project meets the parking requirement. They're not looking to expand the size of the school. We feel that working with the applicant and trying to get the best site plan, that this is a supportable application with the conditions listed in the staff report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, thank you very much. Aaron, that's the applicant to come forward and introduce themselves if they're here. Yes, come on forward.
Hi, my name's Anita Rome. I live at 2716 East 26th Street, and I've lived in that area for 22 years, 23 years. And the school has been there, and I mean, it's an odd location for a school. You got a liquor store there, you got a bar on the corner. But the reason I came today, that I feel it's important to speak to this, is because of diesel fumes in the area, and it's gotten to be it's a public health risk, and so I'm totally in favor of having a playground, but I am not in favor of children breathing diesel fumes. I hold a tobacco treatment specialty certification from Mayo Clinic. And this is secondhand smoke, and these are carcinogens. And this is the number one leading cause of premature death in the country is tobacco smoke. We are talking secondhand smoke here, a lot of the same constituents, larger particle matters in the soot. This is not an appropriate use of space to have these diesel trucks idling there. They idle for maybe all day long. They're not just passing through. They're not just idling for 10, 15 minutes. If I call about the idling issue, I get a variety of responses. And some of them include, don't approach the vehicle, they might have a gun. Trucks are allowed to idle if there's a sleeper car in the truck. Ordinances do allow refrigeration units, which are powered by diesel. And I've been told not to call 911 for this problem. If there's a refrigeration unit sitting directly outside of the Common Ground Meditation Center space, which is also right there at that corner, it sets off the CO alarm in that building. And carbon monoxide is the number one health risk for smoking a combustible cigarette. So carbon monoxide, we all know it's deadly. It occupies your oxygen in the cells of your body, and so it damages. Kids are the most susceptible to that problem because they breathe faster, their body weight's smaller. So it's like twice as much impact on a child than an adult. So short-term exposure to diesel exhaust, irritation to eyes and nose, headache, nausea, long-term respiratory disease, kidney damage, increased blood pressure, lowering of blood's ability to clot, cancer. And again, children are more sensitive to air pollution because they breathe 50% more air per pound of body weight than do adults. So on any given day, you could easily find a dozen trucks on that block, surrounding the block. You could find 5 more to the south and several more to the east in front of my house where they're not supposed to be. So that's my concern. I think it really needs to be looked at. Yes, for the playground, but please get these trucks off that area. This is not appropriate. It's not acceptable. It hurts to breathe.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. With that, Commissioners. Oh, yes. Then I will reopen the public hearing. Please come forward to the microphone, state your name and address.
I'm Jerry Werner with, actually work for Mutual Management Company, and we do all the custodial work at the school. And we've started the process with the remodeling last year and now the playground. So I was just wondering if anybody had any questions about the playground, what it's going to be. You've probably got most of the information up there already, but just thought I would come down quick.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions about the actual application of the playground?
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks so much. Is there anybody else wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And Commissioners, we have one application before us, an expansion of a legal nonconforming use to allow for a new playground. Are there any further questions of staff, discussion, or would somebody like to start us off with a motion? Commissioner Lukey-Pierre.
I mean, I'll start off with a motion and make some comments. So I'm going to move to approve staff recommendation on this item.
We have a motion and a second to approve staff recommendation on the item. Commissioner Lukey-Pierre.
Yeah, so just to speak to the required findings, I find your testimony very compelling. We are quasi-judicial in nature and have to meet the required findings, none of which address that the addition of a playground isn't adding that condition to the site. It seems like outward influences are adding that very valid concern. So I would say that it's unfortunately none of the 6 required findings are things that I can tie to any of that, which would be required in order to vote against staff recommendation. That being said, I would encourage you to follow up with your council member as they were just discussing diesel emissions very recently, and see if something can be done, because I think it's a very timely concern. So I just want to say I hear you, but legally, the required findings aren't supportable with that, because the playground itself, which is the non-conforming thing in question, is not what's causing the problem. So I apologize, but I have to vote for staff recommendation.
Commissioners, any other comments? With that, clerk, please call the roll.
Kranzer,
Aye.
Lipke Pier,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Schrader,
Aye.
Caprini,
Abstain?
and Sweezy.
Aye.
That's 6-0.
That motion carries, and that concludes our business with item number 4. I will now move on to item number 6. 813 12th Avenue Southeast in Ward 3. Staff is Andrew, but no, sorry, I'm on number 5. We're Art and Architecture Building Development. Staff is Peter. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Peter Crandall, Senior City Planner with CPED Land Use. The project before you today has been before this commission before. In June of 2018, the commission approved a 14-story large-scale mixed-use development at this location. At that time, the application included a rezoning of the parcels to the C3A Activity Center District, which the parcels are currently zoned for today. The project is returning to the commission to consider a number of proposed changes to the proposal, which are outlined in the staff report. Again, this project was approved at the commission. It was appealed to the City Planning Commission and then approved by them, subject to a number of conditions. Several of the changes would be considered minor changes under our site plan review ordinance. The primary change that is requiring reconsideration by the Planning Commission under public hearing would be an increase in the number of proposed dwelling units from 208 units to 256 units. So that's 48 additional units. I'm going to go through a few other changes that the applicant is proposing that pertain to the CUP application and site plan review application. A number of these changes are being driven by a proposed conversion of the tower element of the project from condo units to apartment rental units. As a result of that, the tower portion, which you see on the top left and bottom right corner of this image, is getting shorter and somewhat narrower. So it's decreasing in overall bulk. So it's a reduction in height of about 10 feet and then a reduction in width of about 12 feet. Other changes include having to do with the existing art and architecture building on the site. So here's an exhibit that shows that height and bulk reduction of the proposed tower element. And then the existing structure that the proposal is proposing to conserve a part of is located at the center of the design proposal. You can see it in this image here. The applicant had formerly been proposing to conserve the majority of that existing structure. They're now proposing to demolish the rear 2/3 of which had previously been proposed for parking and office uses in order to accommodate a reconfiguration of the structured parking on the site. There's also a reduction in the total overall proposed commercial space from 34,000 to 27,500 square feet, and a reduction in the total vehicle parking spaces from 267 to 237 spaces. I should note that the proposal is still within the minimum vehicle parking requirement with that reduction. There's also a reduction in the overall total FAR from 3.82 to 3.51. The applicant is not proposing any changes in the proposed amenities that they are proposing for alternatives to the zoning exceptions. And staff is recommending approval of all of the modifications subject to all of the conditions that were placed on the project under its previous approval cycle, and includes conditions placed by the Planning Commission and by the City Council under the appeals process. So I won't go too far into detail. The applicant's also here, as is their architectural team. I can take any questions.
Very good. Are there any questions for staff? So, Peter, just to clarify, since you just went over a number of changes, but looking at your memo, we are really focused on the dwelling unit
Correct.
count. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Because the other changes are considered minor.
That's right.
All right. Thank you. Any other, sorry, Commissioner Lippy
Sorry,
here.
Peter, I just had a follow-up question to that. So are you saying that the modifications to the actual historic structure that they are now getting rid of 2/3 of it is not something that's up for discussion tonight?
We can certainly discuss that. Staff is still recommending approval of the proposed amenities under the ordinance standards. So,
And then the diagram showing the change in building bulk was really helpful, demonstrating that in one graphic. Is there a similar graphic showing the changes regarding that building?
regarding which building?
The one where 2/3 of it's now going to be changed from what was originally proposed, the original art and architecture building.
Yeah, I can go through the plans if that would be helpful for you.
I
but
just think
the
just if there was a
architect's also
simple
here.
diagram, or maybe the architect could just outline it, because in the plans, then we get these teeny tiny little black and white copies, and it's nice
Sure.
to discern exactly what's changed from before to now.
Sure, I'll defer to the architectural team to go through that in detail for you.
Thank you, Peter.
Any other questions of staff? With that, I'll open the public hearing and ask the applicant to step forward, introduce themselves, and add any other context you wish.
Thank you, Commissioners. I have a flu recently diagnosed, which is why I'm wearing the face mask, so please forgive me for that. I'm Ari Peretz. I represent Vermilion Development, the developer of the art and architecture project, which is now known as the Wallace Prospect Park. And what I thought I would do to supplement Peter's comments was to talk about what we're asking for and why we're asking for it, and then to also talk a little bit about the history of the project and how we've gotten to where we are today. The proposed change comes from market forces that made it impossible to develop the previous plan of the tower. These market forces are not unique to our project. Other projects, including a prominent one in Northeast Minneapolis, experienced the same pressures and were forced to change their program as well. Our request to increase the project's unit count by 48 units is consistent with a variety of 2040 plan goals, as outlined in the staff report. The increase in units does not result in any increase in massing or built form. Rather, the increase comes with a height reduction of approximately 9 feet and a narrowing of approximately another 12 feet. These changes are visible on pages 35 and 36 of the staff report. They are also consistent with the community's desire to have a shorter and more slender tower. These additional units provide more people the opportunity to live in Prospect Park, a neighborhood with historically low housing turnover and poor access for new residents to enjoy and contribute to the neighborhood. We also commissioned an updated TDMP to reflect this change last spring, and it concluded that parking demand will be fully accommodated with the on-site parking that we have as part of our plan. So how do we get here? We're sitting 18 months roughly from the last time we were in front of the commission, and a lot has happened since then. Our original PUD, as you know, was approved by council in August of 2018. Between August of 2018 and January of 2019, we worked hard to put together the financing for the project, but the for sale component proved impossible to structure around. We then began exploring modifications that would enable our project to move forward, and we discussed these modifications proactively with planning staff to ensure compliance with our original PUD and to keep the number, or frankly any of the changes, in the minor category, avoiding needing to come back for major changes. Their conclusion, which you are aware of, was that the only one of those changes that required Plan Commission approval as a major change was this increase in unit count. In December of 2018, after unsuccessful attempts to derail our project at Plan Commission, the Zoning and Planning Committee, Council, and then Council again through an EAW petition, we were sued by a recently formed group called Friends of Tower Hill Park, which is led by several of the same folks who are here today. This group's central claim is the debunked assertion that our project blocks views and the historic integrity of the Witch's Hat Tower. One of the conditions of our original entitlement was that we consult with a historic consultant on mitigating any impact on the Witch's Hat Tower. New History, a City of Minneapolis approved historic consultant, concluded in a memo from last summer, the Wallace Prospect Park development does not have an impact on the historic integrity of the Prospect Park water tower. It does not impact the integrity of location, design, setting, workmanship, materials, association, or feeling of the historic water tower. Similarly, the Wallace Prospect Park development is a mixed-use residential and commercial development in an historically mixed-use area of the Prospect Park neighborhood, and as such, does not adversely impact the integrity of other historic resources in Prospect Park. Because the Wallace Prospect Park does not adversely impact the integrity of historic resources in Prospect Park, mitigation measures are not required. And the full memo, I'm sure, is available to you through the staff report and CPED. Those who are here to oppose our project have never been concerned with density measured in unit count for our project. They have been centrally concerned with issues related to the Witch's Hat, the height of the tower, and the rear yard setback. All of those issues were reviewed extensively during our community engagement process with PPA, and then again during Plan Commission, the Zoning and Planning Committee, and Council during the summer of 2018, and are not up for re-review right now, as we understand. The activation of this lawsuit removed our ability to coordinate and collaborate with the PPA on this project, which was a painful and frustrating experience for us. And it's one of the reasons why the neighborhood was not made aware of our proposed changes until May of 2019. And it's why we are coming to Planning Commission now versus last year. While we were in our legal, quote-unquote, silent period, the PPA voted to withdraw from our MOU, which had been signed in the previous summer, citing ongoing concerns about the Witch's Hat, height, and setbacks. The PPA board that facilitated the withdrawal is a fundamentally different board than the one with which we collaborated during 2018. We could not participate in their process, nor were we invited to do so. This is in stark contrast to the comprehensive, collaborative engagement process we worked through during the spring and summer of 2018. Many people in Prospect Park, including those who served on our original PPA task force, as well as those who served on the PPA board, support our project in its currently proposed form. They, and I know you, are able to see the big picture benefits that our project offers the community and the city of Minneapolis. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, are there any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you very much. Open the public hearing to everyone else. Please come forward, state your name and address, and then please come forward quickly after that
Hi.
testifier is done.
Hello, Commission. My name is Eric Amel. I'm currently serving as the Prospect Park Association president for the association, and want to give you the position of the association that has come from an open public process. Turns out that there's a lot of, the majority of the neighbors are not pleased with the project. So I put up on the board, and you should have in your packet the resolutions by the board. The first resolution is basically to say that there isn't support for the project as currently proposed, that we withdraw from the current MOU that had been founded the year previous, that there should be new conversations started towards a new agreement with the development. That's the first resolution. The second resolution, 2A, is about proximity to the National Historic District and the nationally designated park and tower. It reads that the association opposes any variance that allows a tall building 10 feet from property lines located a block away from the tower that blocks views. The third resolution, numbered 2B, is about view shed and height. It says that the association adopts language from a 2018 petition that focuses on development rules related both to view sheds to and from the tower in the height proximity to the Witch's Hat Tower. And that was a petition that was on change.org. And I'm going to turn this. It was signed by about 800 folks. And basically what it's proposing is that within 600 feet of the tower that there's a circle inscribed that limits development height to elevation 1030. What 1030 represents is the floor of the observation deck. The project as currently proposed breaks that line by 11 feet or so, plus appurtenances on the roof. So the desire is to keep the primacy of the iconic symbol of the tower with a view shed away towards the horizon. And then there's a red cone that's aimed towards downtown Minneapolis, and the proviso there was that heights would be kept to 970 so that you could have a view shed to the city center. The last resolution was really to say height and setback should be handled by the Minneapolis 2040 provisions and the Transit 10 designation that was being put out under 2040. And that should be applied to art and architecture. So the board ratified the findings of the expanded land use community meeting on that front and contends that that we can't support the project as proposed. That if it were to fall within the heights and setbacks of the current Transit 10 ordinance, we could probably support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, Commission members. My name is Laura Preuss. I'm an elected PPA officer, and in my professional life, I manage a section of planners for a state agency. I'll explain why PPA officially opposes the project in its current form. This new project is very different than the original project that was supported by our board and where we had a 2018 MOU agreement with the developer. When we learned that the original project failed due to a lack of financing for the condos, PPA took this very seriously, especially since the original project was really controversial. As a result, we sought community input on the new project. The developer presented the PPA with detailed written information about the project, and we shared this along with plain language summaries more broadly at a series of land use committee meetings, as well as a large-scale meeting with over 100 people. PPA is working hard to be authentic with community engagement. It's hard. We adopted widely accepted standards in public participation, like those used by the city. And we used a facilitated process to try to get past I like or I don't like the process and look at specific, or I like or don't like the project, but look at specific elements and discuss what was new. Very briefly, here's what we heard. 86% of participants did not support the overall changes to the project. People had the greatest concerns for the changes in units, the changes in unit count, loss of condominiums, adjacent property owner issues, and still height was a concern. We broke it down. Does this work? We broke it down by flip charts of specific elements. People voted. This flip chart was unit count, and these were those who supported the change. These did not support the change. Sadly, many people also told us that they felt let down by the project. Some who had voted yes said that they felt that they'd been sold on something different. Case in point, the high-rise building was specifically touted as being necessary for condominiums. Now that is no longer the case. We also heard that community members are very supportive of Minneapolis 2040 and of development in Prospect Park. We just want it done well. I like to say that we're not NIMBY and we're not YIMBY, but we're DWIMBY for done well in my backyard. And we really do feel that we want development, but we want to be able to protect a few special places that give us those features of our neighborhood that are important for the neighborhood and the city, like the iconic singular landmark of the Witch's Hot Water Tower and Prospect Park. In sum, we believe a solution is possible with redesign. And this new project is not it. We would like to work with the developer and the city to meet the developer's stated values of working well with neighborhoods. We all can be creative and tenacious, and we hope that we could get to a better solution together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Gilliland. I live at 1 Seymour, which is within 350 feet of this project. Thank you for keeping an open mind to the neighborhood perspective on this project. We need your help finding a way forward that is respectful to the vision of Minneapolis 2040 and to the position of PPA. So Peter Crandall should have forwarded to you this morning information on 3 different topics that I would ask that you please pay particular attention to. One is your authority to modify a PUD application to fulfill the purpose of the PUD ordinance. That's per Chapter 527. The purpose of the PUD explicitly includes protecting heritage historic features. And given that your charge is to think broadly about the city, this means thinking about the broader impacts of the project, not just looking at what's maybe technically on the site. The second is that I sent information that questions the PUD points that are being awarded for conservation when the applicant proposes to demolish more than half of the art and architecture building. That diagram shows that, and if you read the definition of demolition that is in the city ordinance for the definitions, that's 520.160. Demolition is the act of moving or raising a building, including the removal, substantial removal, or relocation of 60% or more of the building's exterior. That goes on, but I don't know how you can give conservation points when you are otherwise meeting the city's definition of demolition. The third set of information is about what seems to be, from our perspective, a stonewalling on the important questions of historic preservation. And here I included a declaration from Professor Greg D'Onofrio. This was requested, and he volunteered to do this about a year ago. It was when we weren't seeing anyone else in the city, or the developer had not yet at that time made good on the condition that they consult with a historian. And Professor D'Onofrio has determined that there's a detrimental impact. I would ask you to please read his credentials. Please read his very full analysis, and please read his conclusion that the location and the height of the 14-story tower does impair the historic integrity of the Witch's Hat in terms of the national preservation guidelines. Importantly, condominiums were inextricably linked to neighborhood support of the project, and neighborhood support of the project was inextricably linked to city approvals in 2018. The condominiums were understood, even by people like me, to be a desired thing that balanced the otherwise negative impact of the 14-story tower. The project architect stated to this commission in 2018 that they couldn't just shift massing from the tower to other areas of the site because they needed to separate the ownership structure from the rental structures. This is no longer the case. If all dwelling units are now rental, the applicant can no longer credibly make the argument that they do not have flexibility for how the massing is distributed across the nearly 2-acre site. So please be wary of any reasons for why this project still needs to be a 14-story tower so close to the Witch's Hat and to the residential edge. The neighborhood should not bear the brunt of risky choices made by the applicant, and the city should not allow a developer to take advantage of broken promises. So I'm asking you, please deny these applications or continue them to study them, but you cannot approve them as is. Alternatively, please hold the developer, whether 208 units or 256 units, hold them accountable to Transit 10, which is a 10-story limit, and require a rear yard setback for 10 stories for our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is David Gunndel, and I'm sharing my family's personal truth and perspective from 29 Clarence Avenue, a home and property directly behind the 13-story tower of the proposed Wallace project. My property and those of my next-door neighbors will be most impacted by this development. By impact, I mean proximity, potential structural impact, significant noise, vibration, and air pollution for 18 to 24 months, permanent loss of morning light resulting from the height of the building, and likely diminished property value. My ask is that you reverse the setback variance decision or pause and ask the city planning staff to seek additional perspective on a variance that allows this 13-story structure to move from 31 feet to 10 feet 1 inch off of the property line and allows a significant retaining wall 2 feet off of the property line. The perspective I want to share around this relates to a narrative that has developed around this project, suggesting that those in opposition to it are a group of liberal, progressive elites that generally support projects like this, except when they are in their own backyard. This project can't get any more in my backyard than is what is being proposed. And yep, I'm a progressive white male opposing this project. However, there's another narrative that I want to share, and it is important that you hear it, as it is at the core of my opposition. It's the narrative of my spouse, Amanda, the other title holder on our property. Amanda comes from Queens, New York, having lived 18 years in a 1.5-bedroom apartment that housed her 4 siblings and 2 parents in one of the most dense and diverse parts of Queens. She's the first in her family to graduate from high school, first to go to college, first to graduate from college, and yes, first to own property. She has worked incredibly hard every step of the way to create a life for her biracial children where they could have their own bedroom, a quiet place to study, trees and green spaces to surround them. Imagine then from her perspective being called out for NIMBYism, made to feel guilty for wanting and working to achieve something this developer has, his lawyers and architects have, and most of us in this room have. And imagine then the impact when realizing that as the only person of color on the block, the property is most impacted. Before I hand this to my wife, Amanda, to share her personal truth, I want to emphasize that I'm asking you to request city planning staff to dig deeper in seeking perspectives on the new setback, on the rear setback, in order to make an equitable decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Amanda Herrera Gunndel, and I live at 29 Clarence Avenue. Intent versus impact, right? My husband shared a portion of my perspective. I want to be clear that while there may be a lot of positive intentions in granting this setback entitlement, and I use that word very intentionally, we as a collective have to dig deeper on the nuanced impacts. For 18 years, I lived in extreme density, 7 people in 650 square feet, overlooking a concrete courtyard and other 7+ story buildings. Been there, done that. Is this what you would choose for yourselves? If you paused for a moment to have an extended conversation with me, you would connect the core values of your own work and judgments to my own meritocratic success story that my husband shared, your aspirations for a city that center around racial and economic equity, including affordable housing that leads to economic conditions that support upward mobility for populations of color like me. In this scenario, however, you can see how tenuous this aspiration is. A white developer, supported by white powerful lawyers and architects, working with primarily white city planning staff, all with good intentions but a very homogeneous perspective. Who gains and who loses in this case? Well, in this instance, it's me, the first-generation Mexican-American. While this is not an atypical outcome for me and other persons of color as a result of the engine of privilege and power previously mentioned, I continue to ask whether or not there's a thoughtful way for all of us to win. I want to stress that I'm not asking you to stop the project. I'm simply asking you to reverse or further investigate the entitlement around the rear setback, because the impact is great in so many ways. I more than welcome a solutions-oriented approach that is grounded in multiple perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Ken Mole. I live at 183 Seymour Avenue. I've been in the neighborhood for 15 years. I have raised 2 children there. I can't help but want to contrast this project, which the developer says has been designed because of market forces, apparently requiring a 14-story building, with the one across the street, the Marriott proposed extended stay facility at 5 or 6 stories, not requiring any setbacks, exemptions for setbacks. Why? It just occurs to me that if Marriott can make money at 5 stories, why can't they? Or why couldn't they offer the neighborhood some replacement for the things that the neighborhood has depended on from that art and architecture site? There's no space. It is all market rate housing. The city and the neighborhood's priority is lower cost housing. There is none. Why are they not offering that? They're not offering anything to replace, for instance, the theater arts facility there that my kids went to summer camp to. There's nothing that they have offered the neighborhood, but they are requiring a 10-foot setback, 14 stories. And I don't know. Are 6 of those 10 feet going to be balconies? I don't know. We're getting nothing out of this. It's apparently, if Marriott can make a profit at 5 stories, they can make a huge profit at 14 stories, and they're offering nothing in exchange. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sir, anybody else? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, I'm Devin. I live at 2701 4th Street Southeast. I'm here because I support this project. I support this project because it allows more people to live on the Green Line. Also, changing it from condos to apartments increases the park dedication fees. So we're going to get more money for parks near us. So it will be getting us some things. More parks. So that's going to be great. More people in the Green Line, so less people will be driving. It was 65 degrees in Antarctica on Friday, so that will be a good thing. And yeah, that's really why I support this project. More people living on transit, less people driving, more money for our parks due to the increased park dedication fees from changing from condos to apartments. And yeah, any questions for me right now? None?
Thank you very much. Does anybody else wish to testify? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Joseph Ring. I live at 101 Melbourne Avenue Southeast in Prospect Park. I've been a member of a PPA board for approximately 30 years, for term president. I heard a comment made by Ari, and I feel like there needs to be a response. Prospect Park is kind of a unique neighborhood. Their attorneys for Vermillion, who was once my neighbor, made a comment that it's very rare for people in Prospect Park to have a majority of anything. And the dramatic change that took place with the change in the project created a situation in which the present PPA board and its officers had a challenge to bring all this information to the community. They did an excellent job. Councilmember Gordon was there. He commented it was an excellent community meeting. And it was overwhelmingly rejected that they didn't want to support the project. There was a lot of discussion about the negatives, which you've been made aware of. But Ari made a comment that that meeting was kind of shut out. he wasn't allowed to participate. That's where I draw the big issue. Our chairman of the Land Use Committee specifically went to Ari and asked if he wanted to speak. He said no. That would indicate that he was allowed to be able to participate and speak, but he told you he wasn't. It was a very open meeting. All were welcome. You just had to sign in. You sat down. You listened to the discussion in which Ari said nothing. So I'm assuming he didn't say it was misrepresented, and the people were allowed to do their democracy. That's what you saw. So I think when the Prospect Park community comes out with an 87% on anything, as Mark Savin, their attorneys, would say, that is really rare and very notable. And it was very emotional to me, because as president for 4 terms, I never saw anything like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Vince Netz. I live at 1810 Thornton Southeast. I served as the president of PPA when it reviewed the original PUD. And I thought it might be helpful to summarize the committee process that we used. Obviously, when I was president, just the same kind of thing was going. There were some emotional aspects to this. The Land Use Committee knew it was an important site and commissioned a group of residents and tenants in the art and architecture building to evaluate the project and come back with recommendations. They held 11 public meetings. Ari attended most of them. One meeting had over 160 people at it at the Textile Center. At the same time, we were doing Minneapolis 2040 engagement. Over 300 people participated in that conversation and approved transit 10 density at the site, which includes the height of 14 stories when it's a PUD. And when it came to the vote, we had over 100 people in attendance at the church and 2-1 in favor of the MOU. And that, of course, is when it was condos. And so the change has afforded an opportunity for primarily the homeowners on Tower Hill to re-engage and relitigate the previous issues, which is understandable. If you live right next door to it, of course, I can see why people would feel strongly. But the role of a neighborhood association is to engage the whole community. We're a neighborhood of 9,000 residents. 87% renters, 30% people of color. There's a bigger group that the neighborhood association's job is to engage. And that's the job that we thought we did. And I think we did it very well given that, the number of people that showed up at our meetings, hundreds. So I think all of those issues of height have been litigated over and over again. And tonight, the most important piece is this 28% increase in units. It is very disappointing that we don't have condos, whether or not it's market forces or not. But the job of a neighborhood association is to understand the broader community benefit as well. And it has not been talked about very well tonight. So the 28% increase in units translates into over $77,000 in more park dedication fees. I wish the neighborhood association would be more balanced right now in the way it speaks, and 11% reduction in parking meets the transit goals of 2040, and it's part of the climate solution that the neighborhood already approved. And there's a third benefit, the 8-foot height reduction, that does fit into the Transit 10. So the 2016-18 Prospect Park Board believes strongly that the proper role of the organization was to engage all residents in the 1.24 square mile neighborhood to fully understand the impacts and benefits of a development like this. So I'm proud of the many hours that volunteers and staff spent, and I support this application amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else wish to testify? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is John Kerry. I live at 169 Malcolm Avenue Southeast. I have been a homeowner and a renter in Prospect Park for the last 48 years. Longevity doesn't give me any more rights to be speaking in favor of this than the new renters who are coming into our neighborhood around our light rail stations. I would like to support the staff recommendation of increasing the number of units by 48 to 256. When we started as a neighborhood to look at the impact of light rail, we recognized that we had three major stations: Westgate, which is half in our neighborhood and half in St. Paul, the Prospect Park Station, and Stadium Village, which is right next to the University Stadium. What we wanted along University Avenue and light rail to bring us was mixed-use development that would revitalize University Avenue and our neighborhood and transform the industrial area north of University, which is now part of the Towerside Innovation District, to be a true mixed-use area. This project along University Avenue, just as you come into the city of Minneapolis, is the type of gateway development that we had envisioned in our drawings, that we showed to the neighborhood and so forth, that we ended up using as a part of our local comp plan that we developed in 2017 and was the basis of our support for the 2040 plan of the city. We were one of the few neighborhoods who really liked what 2040 was going to bring to the city of Minneapolis and to our area. In terms of the developer, we have had a very good working relationship previously with Ari Peretz. I was chair of the MOU committee for our land use committee, and I was a board member at that time. I think the important part of this is that it's just an increase in 48 units. It keeps the basic land use and built form that we approved as a part of the 2040. And under the rules of the city in terms of planned unit development, it can vary heights, it can vary other things, and that's what was approved previously. And the only major change is the number of units, not a lot of other things. I know that change is difficult. Urban change is fraught with a lot of emotional concerns, but I think we need to look at the basic facts. And the facts are that this development is consistent with neighborhood and city guidelines. It really helps achieve the vision that we were really talking about when we brought in LRT to Minneapolis. And I encourage you to approve the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Florence Littman. I live at 76 Clarence Avenue Southeast, and I think I trump everyone here because we bought our house in 1963, and we're still in the same house. And I'm aware of all the pressures that have been on Clarence Avenue for a long time, and proposals to do things to it that would totally destroy it. I totally disagree with my neighbor, because one of the things we're forgetting about is we have a nationally recognized historic building there. The tower is recognized by the Department of Interior. Building this building really is going to take from the many and give to the few, even though there are more apartments. This is something that is really I kind of feel it's a lot of bait and switch. Ari says, oh, it was an architecture building that was the gem of the neighborhood. What? No, it's a fine old building, but the tower is something else again. We'll never be able to replace it. This project could be built without destroying the view of the tower. And everything seems to have been done to forget about that. You know, we can't get the HPC. Somehow the HPC could only say, well, look into it. Somehow you couldn't get an environmental impact statement. Somehow and also, you know, the city is not really following its own rules. I'm sure you're all aware with the Minneapolis Code of Ordinance 530.1 .250, and it's very brief. It says, in general, to the extent practical, site plans shall minimize the blocking of views of important elements of the city, such as parks and greenways, significant buildings, and water bodies. Well, if that isn't a significant building, I don't know what is, and it should be preserved. They could build this building in such a way that it doesn't do this, and there's absolutely no reason that it can't. Also, there have been a lot of stuff, people who once thought this was okay were told, well, if you don't, you won't have a seat at the table, so you won't have anything to say. Well, you don't have a seat at the table anyway, because it seems that the only people who are heard of right now are the planners and the developer. And the report that said no harm, that was paid for by the developer. You know how it is. You pick your person and they give you what they want. I'm quite aware of this. Beside being a very long-term resident of Prospect Park, of course I was an infant, when I bought my house, I've been actively involved in neighborhood development issues. I've been president, vice president, and chair of the Land Use and Zoning Committee over the years. I have a master's in public affairs from the University of Minnesota, and I've been on the Land Use Committee. I've been on a number of things. And I really feel that we're doing something. Once you build something else, whether it's condos or rental, it should be something that doesn't destroy the view of the tower. And I think that's simple enough. When you look, you're on the tower and you look to it, you can see St. Paul, you can see Minneapolis, you see this. It's wonderful. People come and see it. So why can't we respect that? And it could be, the original plan, by the way, was for 6 to 8 stories, and no one objected to that. The other thing that really amazes me, it says in the report, according to the planner, that a 4-story building would obscure the tower just as much as this 14-plus story building. I don't know what kind of mathematics that is, but there's no way. If they were building a 4-story building, nobody would say anything. If they were building 6 to 8, something that didn't destroy, that was not higher than the platform of that tower, and it was built to be a viewing tower. It's been that way for years, and it should continue that way. And I think it can be done that way, and I really hope that you will help us do it that way. And just look at the ordinance and see it totally contradicts your own rules. It's not a good idea, because if the elected officials do it, it doesn't give a good example. And I think we can come to some other agreement, and I strongly urge you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else wishing to testify? Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Tom Raycamp. I represent Hubbard Broadcasting at 3415 University. I think everybody knows the other big tower that's probably by Prospect Park is our TV tower, but there's another tower that we have there as well. Hubbard Broadcasting has been in operation in the location since 1946. In 1974, we were granted a license for a weather radar, and currently we are the only other weather radar in the metro area outside of the National Weather Service, and we are a backup for the National Weather Service. Huge community asset, importance for severe weather warning, and we've got that capability. As we look at the tower now, the current plans and the data, we don't see a conflict with that radar, but I think for staff and for the commission to understand in the future, if we go high, we're going to end up blocking, and we're going to have a conflict with that licensed radar if there are other developments of extreme height. So that's all I have to say, just heads up. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is David Frank. I live at 48 Clarence Avenue, and I'm a Prospect Park Association board member. I support the 2040 plan, and I support increased density in my neighborhood. But I oppose this amendment to increase the number of units because it does so by significantly decreasing unit size. Nearly 1/3 of the units have shrunk from 1,400 square feet to 800 square feet. The change is inconsistent with the 2040 plan in that it leaves little to no housing for families. Policy 1, access to housing of the 2040 plan states, to accommodate families in new and rehabilitated multifamily units. Our neighborhood negotiated for many months to get family-sized units. Vermilion said yes and signed an agreement to build them. It's reasonable to ask them to renegotiate given they no longer provide such a diverse housing mix. This change has serious implications for our neighborhood. I encourage you to pause this project take a closer look. Housing choice is particularly critical near transit, and once this is approved, we've eliminated many options. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Please come forward. State your name and address for the record.
My name is Ivan Roberts, and I live at 49 Arthur Avenue Southeast in Prospect Park. The question before us is really related just to the number of units, and I think there's significant benefits from allowing more people to live near Tower Hill Park. Great urban parks are activated by the buildings around them, by drawing more people to them, and by framing the park around them. I've been taking photographs of the tower for 20 years since I moved to Prospect Park, and the truth is there's very few unobstructed views of the tower apart from right in front of it and right down by Pratt School. If you're looking where the building is sort of planned to be, that view is obstructed by wires if you're standing at the Prospect Park Light Rail Station, but you edit them out. If you want to love the tower, and I just got a birthday present from my brother and sister-in-law, a painting of the tower, they know I love the tower, you edit out the things that you can see. We'll live with this. We'll live with this new building. I've been visiting the park and taking photos of the new buildings. They're beautiful, particularly in the sunlight in the winter. I expect that this building will also greatly enhance the park by framing it, by activating it, and bringing more people to appreciate the gem that we have there. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, we have two applications before us. Conditional use permit for planned unit development and site plan review. Commissioner Luebke-Pierre.
Yes, I have those questions for the applicant and their architect.
Absolutely. Questions for the applicant architect?
So the first one is to go over on the plan of the changes to the art and architecture building. If you could outline the extent of what the changes are in terms of not use, but just what's happening with the structure.
So this kind of illustrates it, I think, right? So my name is Jeremiah Smith. I'm with BKV Group, the architecture firm. Just to speak to some of the extent of demolition, you can see in this, what's shown here in red is the existing art and architecture building. A chunk of what is being, we saw a graphic before which shows a significant area being demolished, which I'm not disputing, but a large chunk of that area is a freight run and a sort of a dilapidated dock that kind of sits off to the side, and then above that is the theater, which is not really part of the structure as it was originally built. So I just wanted to kind of put that into context. We've worked really hard to reuse as much of the existing structure as we can. It's difficult to work with existing buildings, but we've tried to preserve the most important character of the building. And so I think if you look at a square footage wise, it's slightly skewed in terms of just the total square footage that's taken up by this kind of dock structure, the elevator structure, the rooftop structure. But we are preserving all of the sort of most interesting sort of street-defining fabric of University Avenue, that as you walk along University Avenue and see the facade of art and architecture building, and again, we're creating two sort of pocket parks, if you will, that sort of flank that existing building to allow that the character of that building to stand on its own, and the portion that is sort of has increased in demolition was a part of it that was sort of hidden within the building before. We just couldn't quite make some of that existing structure work to support the other structure around it. But I think it's just worth noting that the most of the structure that really makes this building I think part of, interesting to look at is what we're really working hard to create with the parks on the side and the preservation of the fabric on the street.
And if comparing the previous project to this project, which portions are changed in your proposed demolition from before to now?
Generally, if I would draw a line, kind of about at this column line, there's an extra bay and a half. I think that the demolition has increased between,
So it's about 40% more?
Well, I would say if we were at, 40% now, we're at, or 35 to 40%, we're at, 50% now. It's a 15 to 20% increase in demolition.
All right, and then I have questions for you. So, real quick, what was the previous unit mix count, and what is it now with the increase in
unit mix itself hasn't changed. We're still at about 70% studios and ones and 30% twos and threes. So the proportions didn't change, just the number of units did. So we applied roughly the same proportion of apartment units that we had in the non-tower portions to the tower when we converted that.
Okay, so you're adding 48 units. What are those 48 units? And what are they? Efficiencies?
It's the same thing. It's 70% studios and ones, and also one bedroom plus dens, and 30% twos and threes. It's about 25% twos and 5% threes.
Huh. Are you decreasing the unit sizes, or how are you getting the...
Significantly, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure that there's an apartment building in Minneapolis that has an average unit size of 1,400 square feet. So we right-sized the units from a for-sale standard to a rental standard, and the size of the rental standards are significantly smaller than the for-sale standard. That's where the increase in count came from. And as you've seen, the building itself got smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to increase the unit count.
So the square footage before on average was 1,400 per unit, you're saying? And what is it now?
It's about just over 800.
800. But it's still the same mix. There's still... Okay. And then I had another question. So the staff report outlines that in order to kind of... One of the considerations we have to take is furthering of comp plan goals. Because I wonder if you could identify which comp plan goals this change is furthering.
Yeah, I don't have the specific 6 or 8 land use and built form goals that were in the comp plan. I didn't copy them down over from the staff report, but I think it was land use policy 1, 4, 8, 9, 12. I mean, I don't have them right in front of me.
Okay. And then lastly, a couple of people actually mentioned the previous justification for 14 stories was because of the dedicated condominium breakdown, and it didn't work to divvy them up among. So now that is gone, what is the driving factor behind? Is it just you don't want to redesign, or what's the deal?
Well, that comment is not totally accurate. We had separated the uses from condos and apartments because we had condos and apartments. Just because we don't have condos anymore doesn't mean that we can all of a sudden take all of that massing and spread it over the rest of the project. We have to deal with building height, structural system limitations, which we've already maxed out on all of the other portions of the project at 7 stories. And when we go back to the beginning, when various folks have brought up the fact that we started our designs in early 2018 at a uniform elevation of 7 stories, that was not well received in the community. That was not well received at our task force. That was essentially vetoed from the beginning. You cannot do 7 stories uniform across the site because it will look like this big block wall. You need to break it up. You need to provide all these relief points. And in doing so, you can have different height elements. That's where it came from. So the fact that we decided to put the condos on one side and the apartments on the other doesn't really impact the fundamental reason why we have a tall part and a relatively short part.
So in addition to just the fact that varying heights is more visually interesting, you were talking about it's just not feasible. Were the soil samples vastly different on your site than the other areas that would prohibit some of that height from being distributed to other buildings, or what's the actual physical limitation? I'm just trying to understand.
They're wood frame buildings, so we can only build up to 7 stories.
So it's a construction methodology. You don't want to spend money for the steel or concrete.
Well, we can't. It wouldn't be cost effective to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, other questions for the applicant or discussion? Commissioner Kranzer.
I just have a clarifying question for staff. Is the Witch's Hat Tower locally and nationally designated? It appears the reports from the historic experts do not reference that clearly. Just want to clarify that for the record.
Yes, so the Prospect Park neighborhood is a national historic district, and the Witch's Hat Tower is a local historic landmark. But the property in question does not fall within either the boundary of the National Historic District or is not connected to the local designation of the tower.
Other questions for staff or the applicant? Thank you. Any further discussion? We have 2 applications before us. Yes, Commissioner Meyer.
So just to review, this is a pretty narrow consideration that we're looking at today. The height and the setbacks were previously approved by the Planning Commission. So the main question is about the additional units. The pros and cons to that, the con is that there's less opportunity for home ownership. But the pros are, as others have mentioned, that more people will be able to live close to the light rail station, and there will be higher park dedication fees. The building is also somewhat shorter than it was originally. Regarding the art and architecture building, I would agree that it's the street-facing facade that is most important. So the additional demolition does not concern me. So with those thoughts in mind, I would move to approve the site plan review and the conditional use permit as recommended by staff.
We have a motion and a second to approve items A and B, site plan review and conditional use permit with the staff recommended conditions. Any further discussion? Commissioner Lupke-Peer.
Yes, I appreciate all the testimony we had today. Actually, I think there was a lot of really compelling information on both sides. I actually find myself somewhat feeling a little bit more relieved to find a little more breathing room compared to the original tower. I thought it was really large and it did impose on the view of the water tower. I think you might recall that from previous testimony when this was over here. I was concerned that it would compete from the horizon line with the view of that iconic structure. That being said, I think I cannot support the motion as it stands. I actually find that it, I have a problem with a couple of the findings. Finding number 2 about the enjoyment of property in the vicinity, I still think it's awfully close. And I think the earlier justifications, I do remember those at the hearing, and I hearing those before, so I don't necessarily know if they still stand. But particularly finding number 5, that it's consistent with the applicable policies of the comp plan. I just want to say the things that are going through my mind in terms of why I won't support this right now. I don't think the original justification is valid. I think, as we all know, we can't base it on financial concerns alone, and the construction type is a financially driven choice made by the developer. That's not something we can fully consider as the be-all, end-all of why we allow something to be shorter or taller. I do think the change in the unit size is compelling. I'll come back to that. I find the demolition testimony that one of the speakers mentioned to be interesting, although I'm not sure how much weight we gave to the historic value of the art and architecture building before, but I do think that it does raise red flags and concern to the percentage of the building being demolished and failing to meet our definition of that. But I just want to clarify that more units does not equal more people, so I'm not sure this is really an increase in density as much as it's an increase in housing for single people. And I think our number one priority in terms of trying to create more affordability for housing is in the city is for families. That's our number one area where we are failing. So in that regard, I did find the testimony regarding unit size to be particularly compelling. It's actually what I was wondering coming into the hearing. And so I was interested to find out what that mix would be. I think 800 square feet isn't something that the average family size in the city would find compelling. I think that if we're talking about increasing density. It should be, because we have park nearby and all these amenities, it should be for families in our city, not just young people or single people or couples. Although those are also welcome in our city, the biggest shortage is for families. So I find that in that regard specifically, it is not consistent with the policies of the comp plan, and I'm sure I'll be in the minority by saying this because I feel as though it does not further our goals toward affordable housing or housing for families. Therefore, I will be voting against this.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Kronzer?
Aye.
Lipke-Pier?
No.
Meyer?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Caprini?
No.
Schrader?
Aye.
Sweezy?
Aye.
It's 5-2.
That motion carried. That motion carries, and that concludes our business with item number 6. We'll move on to item number 7, 3801 Hiawatha Apartments. Staff is Aaron. Yeah, it was both of them. Yeah. No. Yep. Meyer pulled an efficient motion. Meyer pulled an efficient motion.
All right, Chair and Commissioners, the project at 3801 Hiawatha is a conditional use permit to amend a previously approved PUD that those approvals for that planned unit development have lapsed. The applicant is proposing a mixed-use building at the intersection of 38th and Hiawatha with 102 units and 2,200 square feet of commercial space at the intersection. Positives of the project, this would finish a project that's 10 years in the making when you had the Longfellow Station approvals in 2010. It would add more than 100 units near the intersection of 38th and Hiawatha, which is right by a light rail transit station. Add more pedestrian activity with walkout units and commercial storefront. In addition, quality landscape plan and lighting on all around the building. Staff's supportive of the applications that have been applied for, and I'll note the comments that were in the packet. One, a letter of support from the neighborhood outlining that the applicant attended three neighborhood meetings to discuss the project. I'll note there is in the addendum packet a letter with concerns about noise in the area. Definitely the building in and of itself will help with that in some ways, mitigate the amount of sound traveling. And then, not in the packet, but a phone call that was received was a concern about the variance for the unit size. There's a variance to apply that was applied for to allow for one-bedroom units to be smaller than 500 square feet. But I just want to note that all one bedrooms would be greater than 400 square feet, which is well beyond the studio minimum size. So with all that, I'm happy to answer questions or.
Commissioners, are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Kronzer.
Aaron, can you just clarify what you just said, that the variance is no longer needed? Is that?
Thank you, Commissioner Kronzer. The variance for the building setback was withdrawn, but the variance still stands for the unit size square footage. That's still there. 15 of the approximately 60 one-bedroom units would be under 500 square feet, but greater than 400 square feet.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, thank you, Aaron. We'll open the public hearing, ask the applicant to step forward and introduce themselves and add anything else to Aaron's presentation.
Hi, Elise Mira from DJR Architecture. This is
Mark Applebaum from Basecamp Development.
Nothing really on our side. We only got support from you guys and from Aaron and from the neighborhood. But everybody gave us thumbs up about the intention for the design, unit sizes. The intention was to build a building that will have smaller units on the transit line to invite a lot of people without being affordable housing, but to keep it on a low rent, which is why you guys, Aaron was talking to us about maybe even go higher on density and go taller and go more units, but the developer wanted to stay 4 stories so we can keep it wood construction, and then being able to have affordable pricing for the units. So that's on our side, and we are on the transit right between the Mall of America and downtown, on the blue line. So,
thank you.
All the comments that we got were good. So I don't know we'll hear.
Very good. Any questions for the applicant? Seeing none. Yes, Commissioner Meyer. Tap it gently.
There we go. Doesn't wood construction permit up to like 6 stories? I know there are a lot of others that have at least that much.
We did not. Well, then you have to do concrete podium, and go in underground and get more units. We'll have to go. We wanted to keep it at 50% parking because of the light rail. Or in high density high transit area. So to do that, if we went to 5-story, we would have more units, meaning more parking going underground, and that would raise the construction cost, and then there goes all the affordable part.
So it was the parking that resulted in that? If there wasn't the parking, then you wouldn't have that problem, is that correct?
I think that we would need over 4 stories. We would need concrete, podium.
Okay.
So that's where the cost is going to raise. And
okay, that's helpful. I was just asking because it does seem like a missed opportunity to be putting a 4-story building on a Transit 15 that it could allow much higher density near the transit.
I know, and these are the comments that we got from you. So for even higher density, but the client really wanted to gear this building towards people that don't have cars, don't have money for cars, and want the smaller units, and to keep the building affordable for that purpose. The choice was to keep it on 4 stories.
Thank you.
That's the only reason why.
Commissioners, any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to testify? We pulled this item. Someone wishes to testify, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Who was that?
Study first. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Wait.
It's another property. It's not that one.
It's not this one.
Sorry. I think it was mine.
All right. Understood. Okay. Is there anybody wishing to testify on this project? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, we have 4 applications before us. Conditional use permit, variance, two variances, one of which is withdrawn, and site plan review. Any further discussion, or would someone like to lead us off with a motion? Commissioner Sweezy.
I'll start us off. I will move approval of letter A, conditional use permit for a planned unit development with the recommended staff conditions.
We have a motion and a second to approve item A, conditional use permit. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
Mr. President, can I move the rest of them together, or do they have to go separately?
You can move the rest of them together.
I will move approval of item B, the variance, support the withdrawal of the request in letter C, that variance, and move approval of item D, site plan review with the 5 stated conditions.
We have a motion and a second to approve item B, withdraw variant C and approve item D with 5 stated conditions. And a second, Commissioner Kranzer.
Thank you. I just want to remind us all that we saw a project on this property 3 years ago. That was a single story commercial building with a parking lot that we struggled with and declined that application, and for good reason. This is adjacent to the Metro line, and this is the kind of projects we want to see adjacent to our transit system.
Very good. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. That concludes our business with item number 7. Next up is item number 9, the Duffy Lofts, 500, 506, and 528 Washington Avenue North in Ward 3. Staff is Hillary, was making her way down.
Okay, good evening. This is Duffy Lofts, located at 500 to 528 Washington. It occupies the entire block along Washington Avenue North between 5th and 6th Avenues North in the North Loop neighborhood. The site is zoned B4N and also located in the downtown parking overlay district. They are seeking approvals tonight for 3 land use applications. One is to reduce the off-street loading requirement from 2 spaces down to 1. There's a variance of minimum dwelling unit size from 500 square feet down to 468 square feet. And then site plan review to convert these existing buildings from the commercial warehousing uses that they have been for the last 100 years, give or take, to housing. With also some ground level commercial in the building, ground and first floor commercial, I should say. The site is located in both the National Historic District and the local historic district, and they are contributing structures to both of those districts. We have, the city, the Heritage Preservation Commission did review this development on January 21st and did approve the certificate of appropriateness for the rehabilitation of those buildings, and then also a historic variance for signage, which is all explained in the staff report before you. They are proposing to convert the buildings into 188 dwelling units and then 2,400 square feet of ground floor commercial space. There will be residential amenity uses located throughout the buildings. The commercial is kind of scattered throughout the buildings. All of the buildings are currently internally connected, and so residents can move from one end to the other to take advantage of those amenities that are being provided. There will be 118 parking spaces provided on the site, some underground and within the buildings, and those will be accessed off of what is the vacated alley to the north. And then also the surface parking lot there on the corner of 5th and Washington will remain. They will be enhancing the parking lot with landscaping to meet Chapter 530 standards. But those parking spaces will remain. If you all recall at a COW meeting 1 or 2 years ago, because we've seen several proposals, there was always the thought that a building would go on that site, but this applicant has decided not to build anything on that site and then instead use it for the existing parking that is there. I am going to conclude. We are recommending approval, but I will stand for questions.
Commissioners, are there any questions of staff? Commissioner Sweezy, is that a residual? That's an old one. Commissioner Meyer.
Can you speak to the off-street loading variance from 2 small spaces to 1 small space?
Sure. There are existing loading docks in the building. However, to balance the preservation aspect of this project out, a lot of those loading docks are being converted and some are being demolished. And I apologize if that wasn't clear in this report. So they have been able to locate 1 loading space in this area back there. They do also, though, have use of this alley. There is a hotel that fronts 2nd Street North. But that vacated alley, there are reciprocal easements between the property owners to use them. So while there isn't a loading space wholly on this property, the 10 feet width by 25 feet in length, there is space here for loading, which is how the building has operationally been used in the past, because of that reciprocal easement. But it doesn't count as a space for zoning because it's not wholly on their property.
Thank you.
Any further questions of staff? Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you.
I'll ask the applicant to step forward, introduce yourself, add anything further if you wish.
Sure. Thanks, Commissioners. Mark Heffern, Cedar Street, 1020 West Lawrence in Chicago. I appreciate the opportunity in front of you. Thank you for having us. We're very excited about this project. We know there have been a number of false starts with these buildings. I think you guys have seen a number of plans. We are very confident in what we have currently brought to you here today. I may have misheard you, but the extent of retail is 25,000 square feet throughout the development, or right around 24 to 25,000 square feet. Maybe heard 2,400. Yeah, no problem. And the apartment brand, we think it's a great, bringing the commercial to the middle of the North Loop is to us a positive. And we've generally heard nothing but applause for that. The buildings are also very challenged with a lot of existing conditions. All three are very unique. And we think that we have found a program and a product that works amongst the three of them. And we know other people have struggled to make a deal work at the end of the day. So we think that across the board, this mixed-use plan is highest and best for those three buildings, and we're very excited to be in front of you. Thanks for consideration.
Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you very much. Open the public hearing. There's someone who wished to testify on this. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Corinne Bernson. I'm a property owner, Kitty Corner, 401 North 2nd Street. And I fully support the variance to have the reduced size of the units. And I support the renovation. I think it's a great project. I do have some questions that make me, I just need some answers about a couple of things in terms of the off-street loading. On the plans, I didn't see anything for trash pickup. And I saw it within the building plans, but there's nothing shown in the site plan. And with the size of a building like that, and with all the commercial, is going to have a large footprint probably, and it may impact the off-street loading. And then my other question was the commercial space. There's amenity space shown on the rooftop of the Lindsay building, the Far East building, and I'm wondering if that's a commercial. I mean, if it's a bar, because I think we need to know that.
Very good. We can have the applicant or or staff speak to that. Are those the conclusion of your questions? Everyone gets one shot at the mic. So thank you.
Thanks for the pictures. Joe, you want to introduce yourself too?
Joe Brown, BKV Group Architects.
First things first, the rooftop is getting a small addition. We can show you the footprint of it. The size of the addition, the height of the addition has been heavily scrutinized by the State Historical Preservation Group. It has gotten nothing but smaller over the last couple of months, something that we worked through the HPC process as well. What is left of that rooftop addition will simply be an amenity for the building. It will not be a bar that's open to the public in any shape or form. We do intend to bring all the trash through chutes in the building, store the trash in the building, do it all internally, and there'll be a program for wheeling out dumpsters for when there are trash pickup. But all that will be internal to our building, and it won't be anything that'll necessarily be outside. Joe, do you want to give any more detail on that?
Yeah, the trash will be stored inside. We have a small vestibule inside of the building, which will be right off of the private alley, and the trash will be moved in and out through that space.
I definitely want to address the question about loading too. I believe I want to make sure we talk about all three things that you brought up. The alley is private, shared between the Marriott and the Duffy buildings right there. The current structure has, in its 8-foot footprint, kind of protruding from the back of the building, a current loading dock. We're demolishing. That's not historic. We're demolishing that loading dock, which provides an even more free and clear kind of a generous private alley back there. I think that whatever isn't handled within a loading zone that we're planning in our building can easily be accommodated by the private land that's back there against the building, with traffic still free flowing if people for some reason did use that alley, because it does connect between 5th and 6th. I think you could still easily get around a truck once you remove these structures that protrude significantly into the alley right now. Garbage pickup trucks still get back there to this day. So I think that could be secondary, and hopefully something that's not backing up into the street. Washington's busy, backing up onto 5th and 6th.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to testify on this project? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, we have 3 items before us, 2 variances and site plan review with 3 conditions. Commissioner Lupke-Peer.
I'd move staff recommendation on variances A and B.
We have a motion and a second to move variances A and B. Any discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Kranzer.
Aye.
Lipke-Peer.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Caprini.
Aye.
Schrader.
Aye.
Sweezy.
Aye.
7-0.
That motion carries. Commissioner Lupke-Peer.
And I'll move staff recommendation on site plan review with the 3 stated conditions.
We have a motion and a second on item C, site plan review with 3 stated conditions. Any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Kranzer.
Aye.
Lipke-Peer.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Schrader.
Aye.
Caprini.
Aye.
Sweezy.
Aye.
7-0.
That motion carried, and that concludes our business with item number 9. We'll move on to item number 11. Staff is again Hillary, 3115 East 42nd Street.
Okay. This is the project at 3115 East 42nd Street. It is a single lot currently zoned R1A. They are proposing to rezone the site to R5. There are also 4 variances and then site plan review required for the project. 3 of those variances are setbacks, 1 from 32nd, 1 from 42nd, 1 from the rear for the transformer. The 2 front yards, 32nd and 42nd, are both for the building. And then there is another, 1 last variance for the dwelling unit size from 500 square feet to 461 square feet. And then site plan review for the new 30-unit building. We are supporting the project tonight, subject to several conditions of approval. I will just walk you through the project and then I will conclude. So the site is, the future land use for the site is urban neighborhood. East 42nd is, 42nd, is a goods and services corridor, and then the built form guidance for the site is corridor 3. The rezoning, as I had mentioned, is from R1A to R5, and I'm sorry, this map is very yellow on your screen. The adjacent property, there's a house and then a commercial building. Both of those properties are zone C1, and there is a node further down 42nd Street to the west. But rezoning the site from the R1A to the R5 would allow for increased housing density, which is a comprehensive plan goal for the city of Minneapolis. It also supports the built form district of corridor 3, and increasing that density. And so we are recommending approval of that application. The 2 variances that are required, one is on the front yard along 32nd Avenue South. The district requirement is 15 feet. However, the adjacent property, and this is the porch that is discussed in the staff report, the front of the house is here, but there is an open front porch that is a permitted obstruction. So we would measure to the setback of where that house is, or the front wall of the house, not the front wall of the porch, I should say. So they are seeking a variance to go from 26 feet, which is the setback of the house wall, not the porch wall, down to the 18 feet. The porch is 20 feet from the front property line, and so there is a differential of the 2 feet from the front of the porch to the front property line, and then from the building to the front property line. This site, is subject to 2 front yard setbacks because this house faces 42nd, so there are 2 front yard setbacks, and so for all of those reasons, we are recommending approval of the front yard variance down from 26 down to 18 feet. The setback variance that is needed along 42nd is also for the building. Again, the requirement is 15 feet. This house is 4 feet from that property line, from the front property line. The proposed setback of the building is also 4 feet. There is an alley that separates the 2 properties, which increases that distance and provides greater sight lines for those in this house along 42nd. For those reasons, we are also recommending approval. The third variance of setback then is for the transformer, and it is from the rear yard. It's not for the fence itself because the fence is permitted at this height and also in this location. It is for the transformer pad itself. It requires a 5-foot setback from the alley. We are recommending approval down to 2 feet. There is a 6-foot tall fence along this property line that is shared between the 2, and there is also a garage. Again, the house is located up towards 32nd. Initially, that transformer was sitting closer towards the residential structure on the adjacent property in this location, and we did talk with them and with the applicants and ask them to move it back of their building and back towards the alley to really reduce any impacts that it would have on the adjacent properties. And so it does sit in that location, and we are recommending approval of that. There is the variance for the dwelling unit size. Before you again, 16, or of the 30 dwelling units, 16 of them will range between 461 and 467, which is greater than what we require for a studio or an efficiency unit of 350 square feet. We are recommending approval of that. For site plan review, they do require alternative compliance. One for pedestrian access. There is a front door and then a door located towards the alley. There is a walkway that takes one to the alley, but not safely to a public sidewalk. So we are recommending that they continue the sidewalk on their property that gets one from the back door. Because if you lived on that back half, you might actually go out the back door to the public sidewalk instead of having people funnel through the public alley, as that is where cars and other vehicles will drive. So we are not granting alternative compliance, but adding that as a condition of approval to the site plan review. They do not meet their landscaping and screening requirements on the site. They are short in, well, 2 things. We felt that they clustered all of the proposed landscaping towards that front door and then also towards this back entrance. And then they are short in their landscaping species count. And so we are adding a condition that they add, and there is a typo. It must have changed from the report to the condition of approval. It should say 8 evergreen shrubs, not either. It's very different. So we are adding a condition that they, in lieu of that second canopy tree, that they add 8 evergreen shrubs, and we're hoping for ones that go up, but we are not specifying that specifically. And then also additional perennials on the site. So those are and then they also work with staff on the location of the landscaping to maybe put it more into the public realm versus kind of towards the back, hidden by a building and a fence. So hoping to do that with the applicant after, or once they move into, if approved, into building permit process. So those are the conditions, and I will stand for any questions.
Commissioners, are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Kranzer, then Commissioner Luke-Givier.
With the second tree, the northeast corner of the property, like basically the front yard, couldn't the tree fit there?
Yes. They could put another tree there. However, these are new boulevard trees. So, I mean, I would look to a landscape architect to just confirm the spacing of that. But I think, yes, one could put a tree there.
Commissioner Luke-Givier.
Yeah, just to clarify, so the fences are allowed on property lines. Are they allowed right up against the alley? I was just looking at the transformer thinking how often neighbors drive really close to the edge of an alley.
Well, you can build garages 1 foot off, and you could have you can have fences up to the property line. We always recommend staying a few inches in, but you can do that.
Thank you.
Further questions for staff? Thank you, Hillary. I'll ask the applicant to come forward, introduce yourself, and add anything further if you wish.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here. Michael Pink with Lake Area Development, and with me tonight is Scott England from DGR, the project architects. We're super excited about this 30-unit project. It's designed to be affordable for people making 60 to 70% AMI. We did a lot of things in this project with that intent in mind. That's why there's no elevator in this building. That's why, among the reasons, there's no parking in this building, and that's why it's a low amenity building. And now, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them for you.
And the conditions that Hillary just spoke of, we are amenable to those. So we will be working with staff on the landscaping and rerouting of that sidewalk on the west side. So we are here for any questions you might have.
Commissioners, are there any questions of the applicant? Seeing none, thank you very much. I'll open the public hearing. Anybody who wishes to testify, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
I know you guys were laughing at me. My name is Daniel. Clearly, I don't speak English really good, but I'm against the project with these guys. I know they're excited, but it seems to me it's too small area, bringing 30 units. They're not building a parking lot over there. I mean, we always have problem with the parking lot over there, let alone bringing 30 more people, maybe 60 people. And they told me that most of the renters are going to be bikers, which I highly doubted, I used to be a biker myself, but as I'm getting older, I'm not able to do it anymore, okay? And the other thing I don't like about this project is I used to live in Uptown, close to Uptown. That's why we moved over there to that area, because it is more residential. 2 schools really close to it. And I don't see it, the way I see it, they're targeting their customers is like probably single people over there. So to me, it seems like we're not using our schools because they're clearly targeting different people, not families. I'm not against any projects, but if you can probably do a duplex or something else, that's all I can say.
Thank you very much. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Birgit Lillahai, and I live at 4157 42nd Avenue. 32nd Avenue. Anyway, I'm kitty corner to the location that's being discussed. And thank you very much. I have lived at that house for 10 years. My parents have owned it for 35 years. I lived there also 30 years ago. So I have seen what's happened with the light rail being added in, and I understand there's changes, and it's causing lots. As the one thing talked about was the 38th Avenue in Hiawatha addition of apartments. So I understand there's these apartments needed. I also was lucky enough to grow up on 14th and Minneapolis Parkway, which is very close to this location. This location that is putting 30 apartments into the same land space as my duplex, my parents' duplex. It is 1 mile from the Mississippi River, 1 mile from Minnehaha Falls, and a half a mile from Minnehaha Parkway. So when our license plates say Explore Minnesota on them, and we are now removing all nature from that place, and I did look at her overhead, and those trees, yes, have been planted recently, so you know what new trees look like in Minneapolis, I guess. Not a lot of leaves. that would be removing all land from that square. Within the last 3 years, 1 block away, which was the only tree of this size in that area, had a bald eagle in it. Was eating something. I didn't want to talk about that. But there was a bald eagle right there. A deer ran down 32nd Avenue that same year. So I understand there's pressures to put families in this area. And I echo this gentleman in regards to duplex. I was thinking more of maybe a fourplex or something of that nature where it's designed like that. I just don't see how you could ever put 30 units in that space where there's no parking allowed on 42nd, no parking for 32nd there, and we are already jammed for cars in this area. So I just am opposed. I say thank you for hearing me.
Thank you very much.
I would just say thank you for everything you do. After listening to everything you listen to, holy manoli, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm wearing all Minnesota Minneapolis stuff because I love this city. Love it.
That might be a first for the Planning Commission.
Well, you guys have done well. But you're planning this out.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is John White. Yeah, I am a longtime resident in South Minneapolis. I grew up the land use took our house on 42nd. It was just up from 42nd in Hiawatha. And we moved a little bit farther away, but I went to St. Helena, and then I bought the house across from St. Helena. I've lived there for 40 years. I worked for the city of Minneapolis for 37 of those years. This piece of property used to be a church that burnt, but it was a daycare center as well. It was a small church that the neighbors used. It's a very small piece of property. It's got a bus stop in front, and it's a 40-foot setback for the sign for it says bus stop. So there'll be no parking out in front of this building. The bike lane is on the inside or on the outside of where anybody could park past that bus stop. And now the city, I hate to say it, but when they plow, they're about 2 feet from the curb. They don't like to plow close to the curb anymore because they might hurt the plow, even though they have bump irons to protect the plow. So anyway, so now when a car parks there, the bike lane only has about 18 inches. And that's the wintertime. So when people think they're going to bike, I never see anybody bike on 42nd in winter. I know people bike, but that is dangerous as can be to bike there. Well, you're right there where the cars are. And the other problem is when they put 34th Avenue and 33rd right down where 42nd is, they never thought about the traffic situation. Every day, I'm not kidding you, every day, there's 2 blocks of traffic at 4 o'clock, and they all want to turn on 31st and 32nd to make the shortcut to get over to 34th Avenue. It's so bad. I probably have 150 cars at least a day. And the buses, they have to come on 43rd to get to 34th Avenue. It's so bad, you can't imagine. And if you think people are going to take the bus there is no bus shelter like you see in other places that don't even have an apartment building. There's nothing there. So people can't really hardly take the bus from that location. And parking, you're not going to have it. And then to set back this apartment building next to that house on the north side, that's a brand new home. They just built it. And to have this thing go right up to it, please. I mean, that is bad. And then on the other side where they have this pizza place, it's called Chris and Rob's, They have a problem with their garbage that they have to put out back. In back of the house, it's across the alley. It's so bad that a tree caught on fire from all the grease. So now you're going to have an apartment building with 30 residents, and they're going to have trash and rubbish and all that too. And they're going to put it back in that same area where there's a problem right now. And all the rodents, holy buckets. I mean, it's bad right now. So of all the things to put on that small piece of property, a unit of that size, and then to ask it to come all the way out to the sidewalk, where are they going to put the snow? I'm not supposed to throw it in the street. I got to blow it on my property. Is the company that does this going to guarantee that they're going to have a truck there that they can have a bobcat to put it in and haul the snow away? I mean, that's a big problem. And if you think you can park next to that alley, when you come up an alley and you want to make a turn and you got cars all the way back from Hiawatha all the way back to there, you're going to be sitting and waiting. And then if there's a car parked on either side, now you need a setback for cars. So I think it's just a poor idea. That's all. I don't mind the change. I mean, I've seen changes through the city my whole life. But that is not the change that should be on that property. It's a good idea. It's nice to have residents, but not that many. It should be a fourplex or something of that. That's what we all thought would happen there. Not this.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else wish to testify? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Megan Drake Pereira. I live at 4208 32nd Avenue, so the adjacent property to the south of this.
Please take the conversation in the hall so we can.
Sorry. Thanks. So I live right next door to the south of this property, and kind of echoing, I guess, what others said. And I have talked to my neighbors, and I did write a letter, which was in the packet you guys got, or my husband and I did write that. So, for us, obviously, we did buy our property assuming a single-family home would be built there. We were not going to buy it had it been R5 or whatever. So for us, it does. I mean, personally, for our family, it does impact the noise, our enjoyment of our property, privacy, et cetera. That sort of thing. But a concern and talking to neighbors and stuff too is that we are in school walk zones, right? We are a block north. So this property will be a block north of an elementary school, and it's about less than half a mile away from a high school. And I was trying to look. I looked on the 2040 website and stuff to understand how the 2040 plan is synergistic in a sense with the schools, the comprehensive district design that they're going through right now, the redesign, and they really are trying to decrease transportation costs a lot. So trying to emphasize that walk zone and increasing kids walking to school. And so I would say a large concern is really about, this development is obviously not bringing in families. They are very small, 450 square foot units. And we also, DGR Architecture also is building that one on Hiawatha you talked about earlier, right? That's also bringing in small units. There's a couple other new ones being built, not even a mile away on Minnehaha nearby. There are also small units. So there's not a lot of like family-friendly developments in the area. And that I see coming. I haven't really heard of anything coming. And so just being in that vicinity of schools and stuff, it feels like a ripe opportunity to build something that's for families. We all, like he said, we all expected something to go there, probably a fourplex, 6, 8 units, something like that, but more that would bring in families to our neighborhood so we could have kids walking to school and stuff. So that I think is probably one of the bigger concerns for myself and some of the neighbors I've talked to with regards to it is the size of the unit and that bringing that density. Because technically, if you had, say, an 8-plex, say you had 2 4-plexes or something on that property, you could bring in 30 people, or you could bring in 30 units that bring in 30 people. But the smaller, like the family friendly would bring in maybe 30 people, which would also have kids going to our schools. So Minneapolis is losing kids. So, I mean, it just seems like a ripe opportunity to help our schools as well as, the community as a whole. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else wish to testify? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Linda Randers. I live at 4216 32nd Avenue South, so I would be the third house from the corner where this building is proposed. I have lived in my home for 47 years. My home was built in 1900. So I'd like to, I'm an artist. I graduated from the Minneapolis College of Art and Design in 1971, so I'm very sensitive to aesthetics. So I'd like to address that. They did not show a photograph of what this proposed building will look like. But I did go to another meeting at Northrop School, and there was like a photograph, and there was something placed in the photograph that would represent this proposed building. Well, again, I'm very sensitive to visuals. The building does not fit in our neighborhood at all. Most of our homes are older. We take pride in our neighborhood. We keep up our homes. The building is going to be modular, meaning that it's going to be built in Owatonna, Minnesota in pieces. Those pieces will then be trucked to the corner where the building will be constructed. It should take 1 to 2 weeks for the full construction of the building to be done. So I assume that there will be a poured concrete slab. These pieces will be brought in, lifted by crane, and put into place. So this building is just squares and rectangles, does not fit in to a neighborhood with 100-year-old homes. It looks like something from a Chicago ghetto. It looks very cheap. Again, the colors, the shape does not fit. We should have something which is conducive to the neighborhood. I assume the project will go through because we were told that it's a done deal and ground will be broken sometime in March or April. Well, at least if it's going to go through, do something that adds and enhances our neighborhood. So, okay, let's just say that this room is my neighborhood. Everything in this room has been very well done so that everything goes together, it's conducive, it is an old building, it's keeping its character. But, again, this is in our imagination. Let's paint this mural over in white and put up an Andy Warhol soup can. Let's paint this mural over, and we'll put in a Jackson Pollock painting. And let's take out these light fixtures and hang Alexander Calder mobiles. Let's paint the building, or let's paint the walls orange and yellow. What have we got? We've got something that does not fit, is not attractive. Andy Warhol has his place. Jackson Pollock has his place. Alexander Calder's artwork have their place. But in this environment, it would be very disturbing. And it would not add or enhance to this building or this room. And I guess that's what I'm trying to illustrate. This building is extremely, in my opinion, ugly. It's a sore thumb. It does not fit. And whoever designed the building, if they call themselves an architect, I'd say, shame on you, because you've not done a good job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else wish to testify? Going twice. I'll close the public hearing. We have 6 applications before us. Is there any discussion, or would somebody like to start us off with a motion? Commissioner Luke Pier.
Yeah, I'm actually not starting out with a motion. I just wanted to address a comment that you made, sir, about why we were, not you, him, earlier. It was actually in relief of the fact that for once we had an item that wasn't contentious. So it's nothing to do with you. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that because I appreciate that you came down here to testify. So, and I thought you made some really good points. So anyway, just wanted to clear that up.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Meyer.
This is the type of project that I was hoping to see with the 2040 plan and the parking reforms that were passed previously. It enables the type of affordable housing that we're trying to seek here. It's the type of thing that we accomplish by not having parking requirements to have 60 to 70% AMI unsubsidized. And I think it's appropriate at this location because it's adjacent to the light rail station, bus lines 7, 9, 14, 22, 46, and the A line BRT to City Hall. I certainly agree that it would be better if there was a shelter there, and that's something I think that people should advocate for, and having more users who will be nearby will help build the case for that. In regard to snow removal, I just wanted to comment that if there was a duplex at this location, then the requirement for snow removal would be within 24 hours, but by having a multi-unit building, the requirement for snow removal is that the snow has to be cleared within 4 hours. So that increases the snow clearance at the location, which I think is especially appropriate around corners. So if is it okay for me to move all the 6 things at once? I can read them off.
Yes.
So I would move the rezoning of item A, the variances for items B, C, D, and E, and the site plan review for F, with the 6 conditions all recommended by staff.
And I'll note briefly before I ask for a second that the 6th stated condition in site plan review should read 8, not either. Is there a second? There is a motion and a second. Commissioner Sweezy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to respond a little bit to the comments that the people came and made. And as I often say, I'm not sure this would make any difference if I were sitting where you are, but I think I'll say it anyway. This discussion and this debate that we're having here is very typical. It's the first time I've heard it in your neighborhood in particular, but it's been happening quite a bit in other neighborhoods. Marcy Holmes comes to mind and some other ones. And Commissioner Meyer is right that this is the sort of thing that was contemplated in the 2040 plan. And I'll be voting for it and supporting it, but I am very, very sympathetic to what you're saying about the change in the neighborhood. But a couple of things. We don't make our decisions based on taste, really, or how we think something looks, and that can be very subjective. That's number one. Number two, the parking thing, I mean, that's going away everywhere. That isn't just this project where you're going to see a 30-unit building going up without parking. I just don't want you to feel like your neighborhood is being singled out, I guess. When you sit up here for a long time, you see a lot of things and a lot of trends, and I think you're seeing something here that you haven't seen really in that. And then also the thing about unit size in these buildings, and we've heard, some meetings have things that kind of take over, and tonight one of those things has been the size of the units. Should they be 1 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, or whatever? We don't control that here as part of this group. We can make suggestions, we can recommend, but on some level, you can have a parent and a child who goes to school in a 1 bedroom, just like you can in a 3 bedroom, and you can get a 3 bedroom that has 3 adults living in it. So, for me anyway, I want to be careful about generalizing who lives in the places that we build, and that lots of different kinds of families and things can exist in different spaces. But like I said, I'm not sure it would make any difference to me if I had come out here at 4:30 and this was going up on my corner or in my neighborhood. But I just wanted to point that out, and I don't want you to leave here feeling like you didn't get heard or listened to.
Commissioner Schrader, and then Commissioner Caprini.
Thank you. I'll be supporting this. I think the one thing I'd like to just kind of highlight is the modular build. This is something we'd like to see more of the city. If we're talking about creating more affordable housing, the one thing we have to address is how expensive it is to build housing. And this is one of the few solutions out there, so I'm excited to see a project like this.
Commissioner Caprini.
Hi. I want to say thank you to Commissioner Sweezy for your comments in regards to who lives in apartments or single-family homes. I would have appreciated if it had been row houses. And your comments in regards to the close proximity to the schools is something that does mean quite a deal to me, So I'm actually going to be voting against it because of my own views, I guess, in regards to the close proximity of the school. And my hope is that with the 2040 plan that we do move more towards, regardless if it's a apartment or row houses, duplex, fourplex, that we do start to really look for areas where we can build some housing, where families that are looking for housing right now are able to access some of those spaces. So I just wanted to say thank you to that, or that's my comment, sorry.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Luke-Pierre.
Yeah, I'll actually not be supporting the rezoning. I probably would have supported the rest because I assume rezoning is going to happen. But just in general, I just think we just finished a comp plan and this was just down to something. And so it seems a little weird that we're already we thought it was intended for something and now it's intended for something much higher in use. So I guess I'm a little bit wondering why we're changing it so soon. But more importantly, I think that one of the trade-offs is usually when we discussed years ago the elimination of parking for developers, it was usually to offset things such as encouraging an increased investment in quality materials and design, or to result in significant affordability, increases in affordability. And I think we're seeing at times in projects kind of the worst of both worlds. We're not seeing a reinvestment of things and amenities and quality spaces for people living there, but we are seeing kind of it's also not the drastic, radical, affordable housing that we wanted to see there. So I kind of feel it's kind of we're handing out. We handed out an expectation. We didn't get either of the choices. So anyway, I just wanted to say I will be opposed to the rezoning, and I would ask that we vote on that separately from the other applications. Although I do think there is a need for increased density. I also concur that, again, as I said earlier, we have a need for housing for families, and while you can have a family in a one-bedroom, 400-some square foot unit, I can't really say that it's something that I would encourage as the model for the standard of living we want to have for our citizens in this city.
Commissioner Kronzer.
Yeah, I have a comment and a question for staff. My comment is, there's a 100-year-old apartment building built just like this around the corner from my house. There's no parking. It's built up to the lot line similar to this project, and it's been there for 100 years and supported a strong neighborhood, a dense neighborhood, a diversity of neighbors, and that's in Whittier. And this happens to be in a neighborhood that hasn't seen that type of development yet. But I believe this is the future of the 2040 plan, where there's going to be little parking and more housing opportunities across the entire city. So I will be supporting this. I did have a question. The rezoning is really in regards to matching the Corridor 3 comp plan designation. Is that correct?
Correct. I should clarify. This with the adoption of the 2040 plan, we have not rezoned any property as a result of that. We have new built form guidance and new future land use guidance, but we have not come through and rezoned the city to match those built form districts yet. So that is on the horizon, but it is we aren't changing a zoning classification tonight that we just changed.
Any further comments? Commissioner Sweezy, is that a residual? Any further comments? All right, we have a motion and a second to approve all 6 of the applications, but let's separate out item A, the rezoning, for its own roll call vote. Clerk, please call the roll on item A.
Kranzer?
Aye.
Lippy-Keeper?
No.
Meyer?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Caprini?
No.
Schrader?
Aye.
Sweezy?
Aye.
5-2.
That motion carries. We'll now move on to the previously moved and seconded motion to approve according to staff recommendations and with the 6 stated conditions for item F, items B through F. Clerk, please call the roll.
Kranzer?
Aye.
Lippy-Keeper?
Aye.
Meyer?
Aye.
Caprini?
Abstain.
Schrader?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Sweezy?
Aye.
6-0.
That motion carries, and that concludes our business with item 11 tonight, and all of our public hearing items. We do have, as we wrap up the meeting, some recognitions of our fellow commissioners. Commissioner Kranzer has been a member of this commission for what appears to be just an appalling number of land use applications. And we have a resolution of appreciation. I'll read a couple of highlights here. This is Commissioner Kranzer's last hearing. Ryan has served on the City of Minneapolis Planning Commission since 2011 and has participated in over 178 Planning Commission public hearings. That does not include Committee of the Whole. Making decisions and recommendations on over 3,385 land use applications, and adoption of numerous small area plans, policy plans, text amendments, and so forth. The City of Minneapolis wishes to formally recognize Ryan's dedicated service to the City Planning Commission and City, and now therefore be it resolved by the City Planning Commission and the staff to the City Planning Commission that we thank Ryan Kranzer for his faithful and constructive service and wish him the best going onwards. Thank you, Commissioner Kranzer. It is also the final hearing, although she's unable to join us today, of Commissioner Jean Coleman, and I wanted to recognize Commissioner Coleman's exemplary service to this commission as well. Jean participated in over 38 Planning Commission public hearings, making decisions and recommendations on 929 land use applications, which is impressive given a shorter tenure than Commissioner Kranzer's. It's a high density of land use applications. It is a high tenure, right? And the 2040 plan for both Commissioner Kranzer and Coleman. And we appreciate and thank Commissioner Coleman, Jean Coleman, for her faithful and constructive service and wish her the best as well. Hillary, is there any further business from staff?
No, there's not.
Seeing none, the hearing is adjourned.